Introduction. Have you ever felt the weight of words left unspoken? It's a peculiar kind of ache, half longing, half regret, like a song with no melody, quietly thumping in the background of your heart. As someone who grew up in a home where warmth often lingered in the silences, I've spent years wrestling with that feeling. My mother, though loving in her own way, spoke in gestures rather than words, and it left me in a fog of unclarified emotions. Letters to Mom, the words I never said is born from that very fog, a fog that envelopes so many of us, quietly asking, what if? What if I could find the right way to say what I can't bring myself to utter? What if my letters could bridge the chasm between memory and longing? Life has a funny way of handing out unsent letters. Maybe it's a moment of vulnerability that slips by, or perhaps a lifetime of small fractures that never find healing. For many of us, especially those living far from our mothers, they can accumulate like dust on a forgotten shelf. They don't always need to be grand declarations. Sometimes they're a whisper of gratitude, a plea for forgiveness, or even a representation of love that inexplicably feels stuck in time. This book is an invitation. It's an invitation to unpack those burdensome letters we never sent, to acknowledge the wishes we tucked away. You see, writing has been my way of conversing with memory, especially during my time volunteering in hospice letter-writing programs. I witnessed firsthand the transformative power of a few simple words shared in private moments, the way they could untangle grief and even ignite a flicker of joy. Each letter was a thread weaving back lost connections, reminding us of the love that binds us to one another, even beyond the constraints of time and space. In these pages, I'll share my own letters, some addressed to my mother, others to myself, and even to those I've lost along the way. I'll lay bare the emotions that roil within, from the sweet nostalgia of childhood to the bitterness of unhealed wounds. You might find pieces of your own journey mirrored in my words, and in that shared space, we'll embark on a path of remembrance and rejuvenation. Let's break the silence together. Feelings that linger like an unmade bed can be messy, but they're also liberating when acknowledged. In giving voice to our quiet revelations, we dare to confront sorrows while washing ourselves in the light of gratitude. For each tear shed, there's a leaf turned, each paragraph a step toward healing. Maybe you'll discover that addressing your one letters will not only heal your heart, but also kindles grace for those silent love songs. My promise to you is this: you are not alone in your thoughts or your memories. Everyone carries unsent letters, some fragrant with the scent of lavender, others weighed down with salt from untold tears. Let's open those letters, peel them back, and uncover the beauty of the unvoiced. In this space of honesty and vulnerability, I hope to offer a glimmer of recognition and a sense of companionship on your journey. Whether estranged from your mother, pining for a connection long lost, or simply yearning to express feelings bottled under years of silence, these letters are for you. Let's explore the tender aspects of our relationships, the things left unsaid that echo in the caverns of our hearts. Let this book be your companion on the journey to unearth those buried sentiments, and may we find strength together to voice what we never could, the whispered truths that contain the essence of our very being. Chapter 1. The Silence Between Us. The Space Across the Table. It's funny how a simple table can hold so much. My mother and I would sit across from each other, forks and knives poised, as the food sat untouched between us. Each meal felt like a ceremony, a sacred space filled with unspoken words, words that danced around us like specters, haunting the air in their silence. It would be easy to think it was just the food that went cold, but really, it was the conversation that never was. Growing up, I learned the art of silence. It felt like a dress I wore, something familiar yet confining. As a child, I'd look up at my mother, her soft features framed by the glow of the kitchen light, and wonder why her eyes seemed to look through me rather than at me. Love, it seemed, was wrapped in layers of unexpressed emotions. We held each other's hands but never quite reached the heart. Those tables quickly became palaces of longing, spaces rife with questions hanging in the air. What was she thinking? Did I do something wrong? It wasn't just the food that became colder, it was us. The laughter that could have echoed, the stories that could have spilled all over the table, were instead tucked away, left in boxes marked too painful or not right now. I remember wondering if my mother even understood my heart. Occasionally, there would be moments when her gaze would soften, the walls just slightly crumbling. In those small, fleeting seconds, I could almost reach through the silence, grasp her hand, and share a piece of my soul. But something always pulled me back. Fear of vulnerability, fear of her response, or maybe a deeper fear of unraveling the neatly woven tapestry of our lives. Ah, those heartbreakingly ordinary dinners. The clink of plates became a kind of unspoken language, a rhythm to our coexistence. I would pass the salt, she would pour the soup, and somewhere in that space, I yearned to say, "I love you," but the words would never form. Instead, I learned how to translate feelings into carefully cooked meals, the kaleidoscope of flavors betraying the emotions I couldn't articulate. Would the warmth from the chicken adobo fill the void? Would the sweetness of leche flan bridge the distance? The table felt like a dam, holding back a flood of thoughts and feelings. When I finally moved away, it turned out that the silence didn't just linger in her kitchen, it followed me everywhere. Living in my little apartment felt both liberating and suffocating. Without the presence of those meals, I realized just how heavy the unsaid words could be. I'd glance at my own empty kitchen table, wishing for my mother's presence, her soft hum as she stirred the pot, sensing my longing without even needing to ask. Her absence amplified the silence. I found myself wanting to reach out, to write letters that fumbled for truth, letters that could never be sent. Dear Mom, do you miss me the way I miss you? Or perhaps, can silence truly mean love? These thoughts echoed in my mind, constant reminders of what we had, and more so what we hadn't shared. Even now, I think about how we both wore our silence as armor. Maybe, in her own way, my mother believed that by withholding words, she was protecting me. Perhaps she thought that, by not expressing herself, she would leave me unburdened. But oh, how ironic it is that those intentions can cultivate distance in a world that flourishes on connection. I wish I could go back to that table, if only for a moment. I would dare to lay bare my heart, hoping she'd understand the words buried beneath the silence. Maybe I'd find the courage to invite her to sit with me on the other side of that space. Maybe I could tell her about the nuances of my life, the struggles and the triumphs, and at last, fill that table with the warmth we both craved. What I've learned is that love can manifest in the strangest ways. The gap between us held unbridled affection, yet whispered of the pain we both felt. It strikes me now that to experience love fully means embracing the messiness of our unspoken stories. Each moment at that table was a chapter of our lives, and yet it became a haunting reminder of what we never had a chance to share. And in that realization, I find hope. Because even in silence, there's a language of love, one that can be translated through the gentle act of writing, through letters that form bridges over the spaces we left untouched. Putting pen to paper feels like reclaiming those lost conversations, giving voice to emotions that were once trapped across a dinner table. So here I am, inviting you to walk with me through this journey. It's time to explore the spaces between chance encounters and deliberate silence, the echoes of our past that shape who we are today. Let us find a way to weave those words into something tangible, a delicate tapestry that may finally bring healing to the heart and relief to the silence that spans across every table. The words I swallowed. There was a time when the silence between my mother and me felt like a vast ocean, unforgiving, uncharted. I often wondered if our unspoken words dripped from the walls of our home, catching the light and whispering tales of longing. Yet, even in quiet moments, I could feel her stifled dreams settling heavily in the air like dust, waiting for the right winds to reveal them. Growing up in a house that hummed with love but lacked the vocabulary to express it, I learned how to swallow words before they made it past my lips. There were so many things I felt but never said, like confessions caught in my throat, just hovering there, precariously close to spilling over. My mother, in her way, did the same. Perhaps it was simpler to let the silence wrap around us like a cozy blanket, one that shielded us from real conversations, yet also smothered the intimacy we craved. I remember those lazy Sunday afternoons, where the light filtered in through the curtains like golden threads weaving stories of both peace and tension. We would sit together, the television murmuring in the background, and I'd glance at her, hoping she'd turn to me with that knowing look that said, "I see you." But she remained focused on the screen, lost in her own memories, while I painstakingly constructed the sentences I never gave voice to. "What do you want to say? How do you feel?" These questions swirled in my mind, but the answers remained trapped, stifled in the belly of silence, a place where anxiety thrived. Each day felt like an emotional tectonic plate, constantly shifting but never quite erupting. I thought, perhaps naively, that each unanswered question would hold hands with tomorrow's courage, but tomorrow never arrived. It's strange, isn't it, that something as intangible as words grew roots, flowers even, in the shadows of our silence. They stretched their tendrils through both our hearts, tangling all the more tightly the longer we chose to remain unvocal. There was beauty in our connection, but a thorny pain too, one that pressed against my chest, reminding me that love could both uplift and bind. I recall the time I stumbled upon a letter she had written to me one unremarkable afternoon. It was crumpled and yellowed, hidden in an old box. The absence of ink told me everything I needed to know. She had started to pour out her heart, every sentence laced with love and vulnerability. Yet, somehow, they never made it to me. A gentle hand of fate had claimed her courage before it crossed the threshold. That letter was a mirror of my own unspoken thoughts, a bittersweet reflection of our mutual silences. There were nights I'd replay our conversations in my head, stitching together all the words I wished I had summoned. "Mom, I want to tell you about my dreams. I want you to know I think of you while I chase them, even if I don't always say so. I want to hold your hands and hear your secrets, the ones that keep you awake at night. I want you to know it's okay to be vulnerable, to feel everything, without apologies." These lingering phrases echoed in my heart, creating a beautiful melody intertwined with a haunting refrain. And the irony? I could hear her too, whispering her own words into the chasms of her heart as I silently drummed my fingers against my knee, a rhythm of unrequited longing. As her only child, I often felt a tide of responsibility, a desire to fill in those gaps of silence, to pry open the precious moments we shared. Yet, how could I bridge that distance when I hadn't dared to reveal my own scars? Each swallowed word felt like a small piece of us fading away. Now that I'm older and the weight of my memories rests heavily behind my eyelids, I understand that these words are threads in the rich tapestry of our relationship. Some threads pull tight, while others loosen with time. Still, they all interweave to tell our story. There is a certain beauty in silence, isn't there? But we must remember, it isn't the absence of words that creates connections. It's the willingness to share them, to breathe life into the unspoken. That's where healing begins. Perhaps, in our quest for healing, we can learn to gently pry open those letters we've kept hidden away, both for ourselves and for the mothers who loved us in their own quiet ways. After all, the power of words, once released, has the magical ability to shatter the silence. Words can mend broken threads and create new connections that bind us, regardless of distance or time. So here I am, opening my heart wide for all the words I swallowed, the confessions trapped in the depths of our silence, and in doing so, inviting others to explore their own. Together, we can leave room for those words to breathe, for love to flourish in the full expanse of honesty, and for healing to seep into the places we didn't even know were aching. Our everyday goodbye. Goodbyes are funny things, aren't they? They can range from the loud, screeching kind that pierce our hearts to the soft, barely their whispers that slip through the cracks of our everyday lives. For us, I've learned that our goodbyes often fell somewhere in between. They were the trivialities of routine, the practiced gestures wrapped in layers of unspoken words, those moments where the air felt heavier, like it knew something neither of us dared to voice. I remember mornings, the sun stretching its first rays through our kitchen window as you poured your coffee. I was just about to leave for school, hands clutching my backpack, the smell of toast mingling with the lingering scent of sleep. It was always the same. I'd say, "See you later," and you'd smile, a flicker of warmth lighting up your face. But somewhere deep down, I felt a pang of something more profound, an ache cloaked under layers of mundane exchanges. Those moments, they string together the fabric of our relationship, didn't they? And yet, the real weight was never fully named. Instead of sharing that unuttered sentiment packed into those goodbyes, we floated like ships passing in the night. "I love you" and "I'll miss you" became the dreaded phrases left like cobwebs in corners, unspoken but all-encompassing in their absence. I think back fondly to those times. Though we had our hearts set on the surface, the depths remained untouched. Perhaps I was scared to reveal the loneliness that sometimes crept in, even in the presence of family. Watching you immerse yourself in your routine left me wondering if you ever felt those hollows too, but I never dared to ask. Instead, I stood silent, a steadfast soldier behind fortress walls, sometimes thinking that silence was a more honorable armor than vulnerability. It's ironic, really. In a world overflowing with connectedness, we sometimes cultivate the most profound disconnections. Each time I walked out the door with my lunch in tow, there was so much more that could have been said. The weight of the love I felt for you mingled with the weight of what I wanted to say, but somehow they stayed tangled, suffocating in the silence. I wanted to tell you that I admired your strength, that I sometimes felt like a little girl lost in a grown-up world, and that your presence was akin to the quiet hum of a comforting melody. Looking back, I see now that love doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just lives in the spaces between words. We could have filled those silent gaps with honesty, sharing our hopes, fears, the nuances of our day-to-day lives. But instead, we navigated our way through silence like skilled dancers, perfectly in sync yet acutely aware of the void looming in the background. It echoes still, gentle yet relentless, rising like morning fog, reminding me that there's a depth we could have explored together. There were afternoons, too, the ones where we'd sit side by side, our bodies occupying the same space yet our hearts still distant, both guarding secrets that begged for release. I'd catch glimpses of your contemplative gaze, far away like you were searching for answers in the past. I'd wonder, maybe you were lost in your own silences, echoing with questions of love and longing left unanswered. I wanted to reach for your hand, whisper that it's okay to feel fragile, to be human. But the words sat heavy on my tongue, paralyzed by fear of exposing those vulnerable petals blooming in my soul. What a tangled web we wove. The narratives of our everyday lives ultimately became silent poetry etched into our spirits, love intertwined with longing and yet never quite complete. Memories of laughter masked the heartache, but still the silence seemed to loom larger than it should. I yearned for those ebbing waves of connection, a mother's touch, a daughter's embrace, but they felt just beyond my reach. I long for that time, even amidst the pain, because therein lies a bittersweet truth. We did try to communicate, didn't we? Maybe those clumsy attempts at connection, those everyday goodbyes, were all we knew how to offer. Who knows? Perhaps one day I'll find the courage to sit down and write you the letters I've penned in my heart. Words folded like origami, fragile creations waiting to unfurl, to be embodied in a moment that never came. In many ways, our silence became the loudest voice of all, a constant reminder of the love we held, fiercely and quietly, like a whisper that promises to never fade. And though those goodbyes left an imprint, a beautiful smudge on the canvas of our relationship, they also paved the path toward healing, forgiveness, and memory. This journey back to you, through the silence, is where the letters begin. So, here's to those unspoken goodbyes, and to the promises of words that can finally break the silence, because love, our love, should echo not just in the silence between us, but in the cadence of every letter waiting to be penned. Letters I never sent. There are words I've never spoken, trapped beneath layers of time and quiet longing, like forgotten treasures dug deep in the sand. I find myself often pondering what those letters would say if only I had the courage to put pen to paper. Maybe they would whisper tales of my heart that felt too heavy to share, or expose the silent chasms that grew between us. I remember the long afternoons, staring at the dappled light filtering through our kitchen window. My mom would hum softly, moving between tasks, The way she folded laundry or chopped vegetables was both a dance and a distraction. Sometimes I try to catch her gaze, to break through the invisible barrier that hung between us. But I often found myself at a loss for words. "I love you," I craved to say, but the sentence often fizzled in my throat, tangled with the fear of vulnerability. Instead, I buried my emotions under layers of sarcasm and casual conversation. "How was your day?" always felt safe, yet it never ventured into deeper waters. The silence grew rich and textured, like the fabric of a quilt, beautiful, yes, but also full of threads left hanging. My heart carries the weight of conversations left unhad. When I moved away for college, I crafted what felt like a love letter, but it turned into a catalog of guilt and things I should have said. I penned its opening lines. "Dear Mom, I wish I could tell you how much I miss your laugh, how the days feel emptier without your warmth." Yet, right there, just 3 sentences in, the doubt crept in. What did I expect? Would the words even reach her? Would they resonate through the silence that had become our norm? So, I folded it neatly, filed it away in a drawer, dust gathering, just like those feelings I never touched. Sometimes, in the deep of night, I take it out when the world is quiet and the longing becomes unruly. It's funny how vulnerability can feel like a distant dream. I wonder if she knew the feelings I carried, if she felt the ache of our unspoken truths. Would she see the scars behind my laughter? Would she understand the shadows that danced in my silence? "I want to be close to you," I'd want to plead, but the fear of breaking our delicate balance stopped me in my tracks. I remember once, on the verge of tears, sitting on my old bed framed with memories, I composed another letter. This one was less about the sweetness I hesitated to share and more of an admission of my shortcomings. "I'm sorry for the times I made you feel unimportant, for retreating into myself when you needed me most." It's funny, isn't it? In moments when we seek connection, it's too easy to let pride wave its flag of silence. I envisioned sending it via carrier pigeon, or perhaps slipped under her door like whispers of apology. But just like the other letters, it remained unsent, an unspoken promise yet to be fulfilled. Years rolled on and our exchanges grew more blinkered, texts that were short and questions that skimmed the surf rather than delving below. I could almost hear the echoes of all the words we hadn't said dancing around us, taunting yet tender. Would I have the courage to write freely with honesty? Would I lift the veil of silence to reveal the love and the turmoil that underpins our relationship? Often, I wondered what it would take to finally bridge the gap. And then came the days when silence no longer felt like a choice. It was a reality forced upon us. After her passing, I was left with echoes of lost conversations and a heart overflowing with unprocessed emotions. The letters morphed in their absence. They shifted from thoughts of connection to echoes of grief. Why didn't I say it sooner? How could I have allowed the silence to grow so loud? These letters became my confidants, unraveling the intricate bond of mother and child that now existed only in my memory. Each time I penned another, it felt like carving an inscription into stone, marking the profound love I'd once felt but had failed to articulate. Dear Mom, in your absence, I find not only the haunting silence but also the echoes of our laughter, the pigment of your love that is both sheltering and suffocating. I write these letters not just to capture memories, but to reconnect with a part of her and ultimately with myself. Each word, though laden with sorrow, pushes me toward healing. The act of expressing unspoken thoughts offers a reckoning, paving pathways that once felt perpetually blocked. In the end, the letters may never be delivered, yet they live on in the space where silence prevails, where love remains, even if unacknowledged in the light of day. By writing to her, I discover parts of myself I thought lost beneath the surface, realizing that these letters, these words I never said, exist as a bridge across the silence that once separated us.